Bonjour, everyone. Hi, this is Neshi Lokotz. Welcome to Star Nations Communications from Home, and Happy New Year 2018. Can we get a yay? 2017's done. That was a tough year for a lot of us. And we survived it. We came out on the other side of it into 2018, and we're going to be looking for all those positive things, all those lessons we learned in 2017, and how we're going to apply all that good knowledge and wisdom that we gained in 2018. So Happy New Year. And welcome to Star Nations Radio Network. You know, this is one of the items that we provide services for through Star Nations organization. And Star Nations Radio Network was really our very first, I'm going to say child, because, Denise, Awana, Francisco, and I, when we started Star Nations, that was the radio network was with the very first part of the organization. And so here we are in 2018, and this is the very first live show for Star Nations Communications from Home for 2018, and I am happy about it because I kind of missed you guys. And so it's we have a really interesting evening planned this hour. And so I'm glad that you guys are filing into the chat room. And if you could do me a favor, if you would like to help out, if you could share and like the broadcast, because I'm going to do the same thing. I have my phone, and I'm going to do the same thing. And that way, those people who were meant to join us for this evening, if they're running around trying to get things done, or they forgot, which happens a lot, really, that they wanted to watch a particular show, this is a nice reminder for them that their friends are letting them know, right? So I'm going to like it, and I'm going to share it. And where I share my posts is to my timeline. And I do, because I do so many things for the public, I do from my personal timeline from the public. So I'm going to say we're live streaming. And join us. All right. And we'll get that out there. So thank you very much for doing that, for sharing and liking. And we're going to put a little thing up here that's going to say what we're doing, that we're Star Nations Radio Network, and that we are Star Nations Communications from Home. So welcome. Now, many of you came through the holidays, looking forward to it at first, right? Many of us do. And then when we get closer to the holidays and we're right in it, then we start remembering things that, that's the reason why I don't like doing this or being in a certain place with certain people. And there's a reason for all of that. And we can take a look at it from a more positive, I think, perspective. And my guest that's joining us tonight, she's a good friend of mine. We've been friends for a lot of years. And she is a practicing modern day shaman. And when I asked her to come on the show, because I had read her newsletter, and she was writing about releasing old patterns and unresolved issues. And it was like this light bulb moment, that aha moment, it's like, ooh, this is a really good time for this, because we're just right after the holidays, and she's already touching on this. So I invited her to be on the show with us so that we can take a look at this, talk about what is that, and then look at it from a shamanic point of view. Okay, and so I'm hoping that we're going to be able to give you some tips, or to be able to help you resolve some of the things that you don't want to drag with you from 2017, 1965. We want to let some of that stuff go, right? And so I'm going to tell you about my guest. My guest is a shamanic healer from Prairie du Sac, Wisconsin. That's south of me, because I'm in Toma, and that's south of me. She lives on or near the Wisconsin River. Actually, I think she actually lives in Baraboo, if I remember right. She specializes in ancestral healing, compassionate depossession, and curse unraveling. She teaches classes on a variety of spiritual topics, including a 6-month-long ancestral healing circle and the popular Energy Essentials for Empaths. That's right down our alley, right? She also trains students in shamanic healing techniques in a 2.5-year medicine wheel program. Her gentle, grounded energy creates a safe space for healing, and I have to say, I can attest to that. And so I want you to welcome to our show, the very first one for 2018, my good friend, Debra Morrill. And we're going to bring Debra on. Hi, Debra. Welcome to the show. Oh, wait. I forgot. I muted your mic. There you go. Say it again.
Hi, Neshi. Thank you for having me on, and welcome. Welcome to all the listeners and viewers.
Mm-hmm. Now, I got that kind of right. You live in Baraboo, but your practice is out of Prairie du Sac, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's I live about a block from the Baraboo River, and my office is about a block from the Wisconsin River. So there's something about that river energy that really helps the flow of energy.
I know. Well, I grew up on the Wisconsin River, Wisconsin Dells, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that river is really for Native Americans, especially the Ho-Chunk Nation. That river is very, very meaningful. It's a very sacred river to them and to us. I just want to say hello to a few people who are in the chat room. Okay,
Awesome.
We have Karen McIntosh. Hi, Karen. Thanks for joining us. She's saying, "Hey, Debra." And then we also have Sue Simon. Hi, Sue. And Sue is also saying, "Love you, Debra."
Hi, Sue.
Debra fans in the house. We also have Carla Jo Worth. Hi, Carla Jo. Carla Jo is actually one of our contributing writers for the magazine.
Oh,
yeah. And
lovely.
Here's Rochelle. Hi, Rochelle. Good to see you in the house. Rochelle is one of our longtime listeners, and she actually drove all the way across the state to come see me this past summer.
Wow.
Yeah. So we get to spend a little time together and have lunch. All right. I know that there's more, but I'm trying to get the thing to scroll up. And it's not scrolling. It's not scrolling. All right. We're gonna give it a little time to get caught up. Maybe that's the problem. And we'll try to get more people on as soon as it catches up to us. All right. Well, what tonight is all about is, look at my notes, is what we're going to be talking about is releasing old, unresolved issues and patterns. And Debra, from your point of view as a shamanic teacher and practitioner, when you're talking about unresolved issues and old patterns, what does that mean? And if you can give us an example of each one of those.
Absolutely. So, we can be going along in our life just fine. We can think, oh, everything's going great. And then the reason that the holidays are so important, that time with family drops us back into our family of origin and tends to highlight unresolved issues of the past. Just, they tend to come up. And for an example, we might drop back into old roles that we played in our family. Like maybe we were a peacemaker or a caretaker or a helper. Those are some examples of roles. Or maybe we were the good girl, the people pleaser. Those things tend to come up when we're with our family, even if we've done healing around those and in our life, we feel like we're doing well. We get put back in that family of origin again. Some of those things start to come to the surface. So roles, also limiting agreements and defense mechanisms. So, we might have, for instance, a limiting agreement. We might have worked to overcome is, like our family doesn't talk about things. We sweep things under the rug. We ignore the elephant in the living room. But in our life, we've worked on really speaking our truth, but then we go back home and find ourselves clamming up again and not speaking. or as defense mechanisms, the things that we developed in childhood to keep us feeling safe. Maybe we started, maybe we were the class clown or the jokester. Maybe that pattern of deflection became a pattern that we carried into adulthood, and now it no longer serves us. So those things really tend to come to the surface. And, if we notice, if there's still energy around them, they still have power. So if we get triggered, there's still energy there somewhere. So then we want to take a look at that and work with it shamanically, work with it energetically, work with it with a counselor, track to the bottom, and then drain away the next layer of energy.
So basically, it's getting to the root, as close to the root as we possibly can get.
Absolutely, as close to the root as we can. And that's one of the things I really like about shamanic healing is we learn to go upstream to the source. So instead of, downstream, in all the different ways it impacts us, by going upstream to the source, we can work with it there and cut off the energy to the tributaries instead of trying to clean up, all the tributaries way downstream.
Right. And two people who are used to living under the Wisconsin River, we understand that metaphor.
We understand that, yes.
Hi to Rob Kendall. Thank you for being with us, Rob, tonight. Good to see you in the house. And there was another message up here that I'm trying to get to. As you were talking, I finally got it to work. And of course, now that I want it, it doesn't want to roll. There is a person in the chat room who, Rochelle was saying that she really needed the show, and she was happy that we were doing this topic. And we also had a good friend of mine, Anne, is also in the house, and Anne is saying hello to both of us. And if we can, I'll work with that scrolling thing as we're going along and trying to get some of those. Because what I want to do is, if somebody has a question, I want to make sure the question, right?
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying to do. I do have one question for you, because there's in the Star Nations community, we have many people who are adopted. And so when you say family of origin, does that mean that they learn, depending on when they were adopted, they learn from their adopted family, and or do they bring something from their family of origin through their DNA, possibly, into that situation as well?
You're right. There's two avenues where this affects us, in our DNA. So we can also be affected by the DNA, the energetic, the unfinished business of our family. But then also, now the kinds of things I'm more talking about, the limiting agreements, the roles, the defense mechanisms, those come a little bit more frequently from the family that we live with.
Okay. All right.
Because, it's a lot of that, that training, that domestication that we experience in our family of origin.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that we asked that particular question, because I know it's going to come up at some point, and to be able to know that what we're talking about is what we learned from the home that we grew up in.
Yes.
People that we grew up with.
Right, which, parents, caretakers, early teachers, early childhood friends, those, we learned a lot from those people.
And so those early defense mechanisms, sometimes coping mechanisms, they come into play with us as an adult. Right?
Oh, absolutely. Because those things that, children are very creative. Children are very wise about knowing what to do to take care of themselves and ensure their survival, that they survive to grow up into adulthood. Yeah. And so then, they worked for us all those years with our family. And so we take them into adulthood, and now we're going out into the world with these same patterns of, lack of communication, or speaking our truth, or, feeling indecisive, or wanting to hide, or being aggressive, or, whatever these were, we take them into the world, and they become the patterns that we use routinely in the world. And now that we're an adult, though, and away from home, we have a lot more freedom of choice, but we're still living by the old rules.
And those tend to crop up. I mean, this is just from personal experience. Those tend to crop up more when we're stressed, when we're put in situations that we thought, oh, I can handle this. I got this.
Yeah.
And then, and that's why we're talking around the holidays. But it's just not
Yes.
holidays. It's also weddings and funerals, family reunions.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
so when you think that you have, you've had all these years of experience and you got some shamanic training under your belt, and then you're put into that situation, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, I haven't done that since I was 17. What the heck's going on?
Right. Now, here's the interesting part too. We also tend to gravitate toward those defense mechanisms from childhood and those limiting agreements and those roles. Anytime we're in one of those old familiar situations that reminds us somehow of our family.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So maybe for instance, maybe our boss reminds us of our mother or our father. Imagine what that can bring up. Imagine going to work and feeling like, you're 8 years old every time you have an interaction with your boss.
Oh my God.
But this is what we do. This is what happens. Now, the whole reason, the benefit, the reason that we want to take care of this, we want to identify these issues and then bring them out into the light for healing. There's a shamanic term for this. It's called making medicine out of your pain. Making medicine out of your pain.
I like that.
And it's so powerful because what we find time and again is when these old core wounds become healed, they become our greatest source of strength.
That's a fact.
That is a fact. They become our greatest strength and actually also part of our greatest gifts.
And that is probably the number one, if we're listing reasons why we're going through all of this and why it keeps repeating itself, is because Spirit's giving us an opportunity.
Yes.
To actually heal and learn from it and turn that pain into medicine. Right?
Yes. I agree too. I'm assuming you do as well, that I view the universe as a benevolent place with benevolent forces that are really encouraging us to heal and do our work. And so, we're getting help from the unseen world, frequently when even a trigger, we could look at a trigger and say, oh, this is harmful, this is bad, this is negative because I got triggered. Or we could flip that on its head and say, look, this is an opportunity to get to the bottom of this and heal at a deeper level.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's where we want to go, right? That's what we want to do.
That's what we want to do. We want to bring more of ourself out into the light. We want to bring more of our true self home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And when we're talking about home, right? When we're talking about home, in my world, it's called being able to vibrate as close as possible at your signature vibration that we came in with.
Yep, that's great. That's a great description of true self.
Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that you have to be perfect.
Yeah, no, we're not perfect. We're human, and I like to say it's about being kind and gentle to ourselves, and being our own best friend. If a friend did the same thing that we were beating ourselves up for, if a friend did that, what would we say to our friend? We'd say, oh, no worries. It's not a big deal. Shake it off, learn from it, and, keep moving forward. That's what would say to a friend.
Right.
So let's treat ourselves that way.
And be kinder to ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Actually, what I do say to some of my friends is when they start not being very kind to themselves is look right on. Stop being mean to my friend.
Oh.
I don't let anybody talk about my friends badly, including you.
Oh, that is so. I saw earlier. I want to say a shout out to my friend Jan Jacobs, who's watching tonight. She, early on in my spiritual path, she mirrored that for me. So thank you, Jan.
Oh, there's Jan. Good to have you here, Jan. And then Karen McIntosh says, "Oh, this is so exciting! Yay, Deborah!" It is exciting.
So,
all right. So go ahead.
Do you want to talk about some of the shamanic techniques for healing, some of these old patterns of the past?
Yes, I do. I really do, because what I'd like to be able to have our audience take away from this evening, at least one thing that they can actually put into practice, into their life, that they're actually able to do. So if we can get to
All
that.
right.
Great.
Absolutely. Actually, we can, yes. One great place to start is with just bringing our awareness. Okay, so we're with our family, we're with an old friend, noticing, oh, I'm not feeling okay, I'm getting triggered. And then just kind of pausing, taking a time out, and just asking yourself quietly inside your head, having an internal conversation and saying, okay, I'm not feeling well, I'm getting triggered. What is happening here? And then just to sit with that and ask that question, just that sometimes helps bring it out into the light for healing.
Well, I think we need to step back just a half a step.
Okay.
Half a step. And to be honest and clear with ourselves. And you don't have to tell this to anybody, but to be honest with yourself and say, what are my triggers? What are the top 3 triggers? To able to identify them for yourselves. You don't have to share it with anybody if you don't want to, but to be able to be honest with yourself and say, you know what, when I feel this way.
Yeah, when I feel this way, I tend to have this reaction.
Mm-hmm. So we're looking for the feelings and then the reaction.
Yes. So then what we can do is, there's a really powerful shamanic technique called shamanic breath work. This is based on the belief that our bodies store unprocessed emotion and unresolved pain and energy.
Mm-hmm.
So our bodies store this old energy. And when we get triggered, what happens often is the same old pain from the first, from the core wounding, that pain lights up in the body to get our attention. So for instance, we might feel tightness around our throat. We might feel tightness in our chest. We might feel small, like we're 8 years old again. Those are some of the things to watch. We might notice that we're starting to leave our body feeling maybe a little bit scattered. Those are some of the things to watch for. Once we notice a trigger like that and how it's affecting the body, we can pause. We can step into another room for a minute. We can just even, just kind of pause in our conversation and just begin some deep breathing. Now, in a shamanic healing session, I would coach a client through this, but we can also do this for ourselves. Breath is movement. So my chiropractor has a saying. Mm-hmm. He says, when we breathe, every bone in our body moves. That's what my chiropractor says. I modify.
Say it again.
When we breathe, every bone in our body moves.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that profound?
That is.
So I take it a step deeper and I say, when we breathe, every cell in our body moves.
So true. And when we are in those places, when our emotions, mine is usually in my stomach. It's like, it starts to go, ugh. I can feel it. It's like, okay, yes. I got to breathe here. Got to breathe into it. Breathe.
Yep. That's exactly.
So when we're like that, I think that when we can identify it, and we can start breathing, because that's the first thing that happens is we hold our breath.
Absolutely.
And we start breathing shallow.
Right. And that does not help us. So when we breathe deeply, the parasympathetic nervous system is activated. That's the response. It's the opposite of the fight or flight. It's the rest and digest. So our body relaxes. We breathe more deeply. That's the rest and digest, which is activated by deep breathing.
Mm-hmm.
So when we breathe with intention, it's especially powerful. So in your case, for instance, you notice that your stomach is getting tense.
Yep.
So you'd stop and you'd breathe. You'd just say, thank you to your body. Thank you. I don't want you to feel the burden of carrying this. So let's just do some breathing and release this. And this breathing is very simple. Mm-hmm. It's with the in-breath. We use the in-breath to focus on that place in the body. So your stomach, in-breath, focusing on the stomach. And then on the exhale, allowing that energy to just release.
Right.
It's not pushing it out. It's not forcing it. It's just allowing it to release.
And that really is self-care.
It's self-care on a deep cellular, deep core level.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now we have something in the chat room. I'm going to move our names a little bit so we can, because it's kind of a big message here. Rochelle is saying, I have gone to many years of therapy to rid myself of all the crap. Both parents and in-laws have passed. The only relative I have is my son who lives with me and Joe who lives in Madison. So I think that, thank you, Rochelle, for sharing that. Because I think that there's many people who have spent a lot of years in therapy. And this is one of the ways that I think that shamanic healing and therapy can work together.
Absolutely. They're very good complements. The processing and the cognitive behavioral comes through the therapy. The benefit of the shamanic healing is the shamanic healing shifts the energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really helpful because it can cut through years of stuck or stagnant energy. It can release old patterns. There's methods for releasing old limiting agreements. And then into that opening, into that space that we create, we call home our soul, any lost or missing soul pieces, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. which is another really, soul retrieval is an extremely powerful shamanic technique.
It certainly is. And then we also have Holly. Hi, Holly. I'm going to show your message here. Holly's in the house. She says, yes, timely topic. I've encountered some patterns this holiday season. Luckily, I've noticed some of them, and I'm trying to keep it from spreading.
Oh, congratulations, Holly. Awareness is the first step to change. And there's a very simple technique that when we notice ourselves slipping into an old pattern or being affected, being triggered by an old issue, there's something very simple that we can do. And that is we pause and take a breath. And then we hold up our hand and we say, stop. I no longer agree to this. Mm-hmm. And that's a way of you catching it, doing something energetic to bring about that shift, to get us out of that rut, that pathway. Mm-hmm. And then we redirect with a positive affirmation. So for instance, if we find ourselves clamming up and not speaking our truth, we would say, stop, I no longer agree to this. And then we might say to ourselves, I speak my truth with kindness.
Okay,
we might use that.
I just want to make sure I understand, is that when you say stop, I no longer agree with this, you're saying this out loud.
You may, or you may be saying it silently in your head to yourself. It doesn't matter. It works either way. But I actually like to do the motion with the hand because that gives my body something to do, and that helps spark the change as well. So basically what you're doing is disrupting the old pathway, the old rut, the old pattern.
That old synapse.
Yes. We're reprogramming ourselves. Stop. I no longer agree to this. Now, if this is an interaction with another person, you may play around with saying that out loud as well. That's very powerful. Maybe one of your family members has asked you, not ever overtly, but maybe you play the role of helper or caretaker with them. And maybe you've realized that you're doing that and you want to get out of that pattern. Mm-hmm. And so the next time they just kind of, ask something of you and assume that you're going to do that, you might say, stop. I no longer agree to this. And I am choosing to do something new. I'm choosing to let you take care of yourself in that manner. I'm choosing to take care of myself and putting my needs first because I've become run down. I'm not taking care of myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it's easier to do a little role playing with a friend.
Yes, absolutely.
Because come on, you know that when we're right in the middle of that particular kind of situation, many times we're lost for words. Our throat chakra gets jammed. It's like you're trying, what was I supposed to say? I know I was supposed to say something, and you're kind of lost for words. And then what does come out maybe isn't as eloquent as you wanted it, or kind as you wanted it, or kind of choppy, and there goes your self-esteem and your power right out the window,
Right. Well, yes, role playing with a friend would be wonderful. And I also believe that just allowing ourselves, giving ourselves permission to learn. So all of these things that we're talking about are skills, are skills. And we want to that's part of being kind to ourselves, is we want to give ourselves spaciousness to practice a new skill. So, if we picked up a guitar, we've never played a musical instrument before. We pick up a guitar, it would be kind of ridiculous to think that we're going to pick it up and play perfectly a song the first time we do that. Yeah. So these are the same kinds of skills. They don't necessarily come naturally. So we want to give ourselves permission. You know what? Yeah, the first time I try this, I might totally have mealy mouth and only get out half of what I want to say. The next time I try it, I might come out way too strong, and be unkind or be aggressive with it. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, with practice, we settle in and find more comfort with speaking our truth.
Right. Now, Anne, and this is my friend Anne. Anne is saying, "Hello, Neshi. Hi. Love this, and I need this segment so much right now. Thank you." Well, you're welcome. You're welcome. And I have to give complete credit to Debra, because if I was not reading your newsletter the other day, I wouldn't have had the light bulb moment. It's like, we got to get this information out there to a bigger audience. And so, yeah, while I'm at that kind of juncture, I was going to have people know where they can get a hold of you if they would like to get a session with you or just to talk to you and ask you some questions. What is the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Right now, the best way to get a hold of me would be phone or email. And my phone number, 608-279-4319. And my email is Debra Morrill, DebraMorrill @charter.net. And then my website is debramorrill.com. And there's there's a lot of old blog postings and articles I've written on there with more tools as well. So I would invite anybody who's new to visit my website and to go back and read through some of the blog postings. There's a lot more tools there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good one. Because and Debra's website is very easy to use and to get around in. So visit her website. I do have to say that Debra, the first time that I was with you for a shamanic session, I don't know if you remember this.
Yes, it was years ago when I was apprenticing and learning. Yes. You
Yeah,
were one of the first people who said, "Yeah, I'd like a session." Yeah.
sure. And it went really, really well. I remember in the meditation when we first started is, of course, with me, I hear the drumming right away, right?
Yes.
I mean, even if I turn my attention to it, I can still hear the jaguar like right here on my right side, because he was loud, loud purring, and then the cat.
Oh.
And I think that was the very first time I ever had the Florida water sprayed on me.
Yeah, some of our guests are going to be chuckling right now because they know what we're talking about.
That's right. That's right. That Florida.
So, so thank you also for saying about the power animal,
Uh-huh.
because that's another thing that we can do in the moment.
Mhm.
A tool that we can turn to in the moment when we're getting triggered is we can turn to our power animal. We can turn to any of our spirit guides, our spirit helpers, our angels, and ask them for help. Give me strength in this moment. Give me strength to stay in my center, to stay connected, to not run away.
Right, right. And to be a little proactive because, especially when you've been around the block a few times with family and now you have some tools under your belt, you've been to some classes, you're doing meditation, is to remember before you even go is to get yourself prepared in mind, body, and spirit.
Yes.
Get grounded, get centered, get your helpers out there, your protective people out there, and the one spirit guide who helps you to speak your truth in a kind way.
Yes, absolutely.
Right next to you. Come close.
So,
before you get So we have another comment here from Carla Jo. She says these past couple of months seem to bring the crap to the surface more than other times of the year. We all have expectations of what holiday family time should be, and none of us live up to the hallmark moment.
oh, there's a lot of wisdom, Carla. Thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of wisdom there. So the very best thing that we can do is to just show up with our full self, grounded, with an open heart, and to be fully present without expectations, and just be there, acknowledge. Okay, so I teach my students and people who take classes with me. I teach them that there's 3 things that we can do whenever we're in one of those stressful, uncomfortable situations. Okay, so here's the 3 things to remember. Number 1, show up. Show up for ourselves. Be present. Yeah. Number 2, say yes to what is. Acknowledge the reality. It doesn't do us any good to live in fantasy land, to think, that it's something it isn't. Say yes to what is. Acknowledge it. There was a big turning point for me on my healing journey came when I acknowledged that my parents, they loved me. They were great parents. They were exactly what I needed, but I was very empathic and very sensitive. They didn't know what to do with me. They didn't know how to help me. So a big turning point came in my life when I acknowledged that they weren't probably ever going to be able to understand that. And that was okay. I accepted that and said yes. And so it was a big healing point. Third thing, keep an open heart. So show up, say yes to what is, and keep your heart open. And those are just 3 really helpful tools for any situation.
And some kind self-talk,
Yes.
And you know your family better than anybody. And so when you can see it. You can see the situation building, and the players are getting in, the characters are getting into place.
Everybody's playing their role.
And as an empath, you start feeling that before you actually see it.
Absolutely.
Saying, here it comes.
Yep.
So doing what Debra suggests is to pause, to breathe. I say, get your spiritual team ready. Say, okay, what's my next best step? Where do I go from here? Maybe it is to suggest, I'm going to go for a walk. Anybody want to go with me? Take some of the kids outside.
Yes.
You know, to break that, as you called it, disrupting what you know is going to be happening. It may still happen, but it doesn't mean that you have to be there for it. You can go outside, you can take a walk, you can, here's one of my mechanisms that I've noticed, because I'm an only daughter. And so when it comes to holiday meals and that sort of stuff, I'm the one that has to do all the running of the errands. My mom would be saying, oh, do this, do that. Can you bring this? Can you get that? And then at the end of the meal, it's the cleanup. And I used to just, oh my God, I got to do dishes again. But I also found that was also where I hid. That's where I hid. And so doing the dishes took me out of the fray that was going to be happening. And so sometimes, it's like, oh no, I got this. You want to go and go ahead. when I get a sink or a drain full, I'll call somebody and say, can you help dry dishes? Kind of thing. As an adult though, I don't do that anymore. I recruited.
Good. A little bit ago, I saw a comment from Karen scroll by, and I think I only caught part of it. She said, aren't the holidays a great time to practice setting boundaries? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So in that situation, like the dishes and the cleanup, asking for help. You did.
Is the holiday a good time to set boundaries with family, or should we just let some things go and address it before or after?
I would say let the energy of the moment be your guide. There may be some things that you need to address right at the moment. For instance, if you've slaved over the meal and done all the cooking, you'd be perfectly within your right to say, you know what, I cooked. Let's have some help with kitchen cleanup. Absolutely. That should be addressed on the spot. One of my teachers once told me, he had this beautiful quote. What he says is, say what is so, when it is so, without blame or judgment.
And that is the crux of it, I think, Deborah, is that without blame or judgment.
Yeah.
Without blame and judgment. Because we're growing.
Yeah.
We're learning. And at some point we say, you know what? They did the best they could when I was a kid. I'm 58 years old now, or I'm 45 now, and no blame, no judgment. They did the best they could given the situations that they were in.
Yeah. That's that piece of awareness and forgiveness and accepting reality. Yeah.
Accepting reality. Oh my goodness. Where's that 5D? We're so ready for it. We've been working for it since before 2012, that 5D. And there's some people in the chat room that know what I'm talking about, because so many people were getting fully aware of consciously walking their spiritual life and learning how to do this as a human.
Yes.
And so here we are. This is our testing ground. This is those family gatherings, and it's not always family. Sometimes it's friends who play that role for you. Is that this is an opportunity to heal, an opportunity to learn.
Yes.
And to grow.
Yeah. Another growth opportunity.
Well, we got about 15 minutes left. I tell you what, these 30-minute shows go by like in a blink of an eye. And I'm always amazed at our shows that are, they do the same thing. But, we get to cover a lot more deeper subjects in an hour. Rob, I got to do this one, Rob. Let's see, wait. Oh, they're scrolling by so fast. Rob, I can't find it now. Rob was saying reality is highly overrated. And Jan is going to find normal. That's true.
That's true.
You know,
Yeah.
one person's definition of normal is certainly not someone else's. That's for sure.
If I could, I want to just say a little bit more about soul retrieval.
Okay.
Because that is one of the the most common shamanic healing interventions, and it's so powerful. And that is really what cuts through years of stuck and stagnant energy to bring about the most growth and change. So right. To describe or explain soul retrieval, I want to first talk about soul loss. So, and we're talking about soul, S-O-U-L, soul. Mm-hmm. So soul loss happens at any point in our life where just in that moment, something is so uncomfortable, so painful, we're maybe even afraid that we're not going to survive. There's core soul loss that happens in early childhood in our families of origin, where maybe it's even having a realization that we don't fit into our families, and we're afraid that we have to fit in, otherwise we're going to get kicked out, and what if our family left us, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So when a piece of our soul leaves in order to maintain the survival of the whole. So the part that is really uncomfortable, that part leaves. So that's soul loss. It goes away. Modern psychological terms, that is known as disassociation. Mm-hmm. So soul loss, though, is when a part of us goes away and doesn't come back. But it's not just a piece of our soul that leaves. It's a piece of our vitality, a piece of our life force essence, some of our gifts or skills or abilities, some of our joy, all of that leaves with our soul piece. Mm-hmm. So on some level, we recognize that something is missing, something left, and we feel that void. And I've had clients say to me, Debra, I feel like I have a hole in my heart. And whenever I hear that, I always watch for soul loss. Mm-hmm. So when we have that hole in our heart, we always reach out to something to fill that void. And, it can be negative patterns. It can be negative thoughts. It could be physical illness. It could be mental illness that comes in to fill that void. It could be addictions. It could be, numbing out, all those kind of things may come in to fill that void. Mm-hmm. And so why we do soul retrieval, when we do soul retrieval, a shamanic practitioner tracks that missing soul piece, right, along with our spirit guides. Our spirit guides really do this, but we're working together with our spirit guides to track that missing soul piece, to bring it to a safe place in the spirit world, and then to do healing for it, to restore it to its full light and vitality. And then that gets brought back. Those gifts, those abilities, that vitality, that joy, that light, that essence, that radiance, that energetically gets brought back to you. And it's just an amazing thing, because now we can speak our truth more easily. We can trust more easily. We are more joyful, things like that. So when it comes to, we feel more whole and more complete. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to early childhood wounds, soul retrieval is so powerful. That's really what I would, if this is striking a chord with you as we're talking about this, I really would urge, you to find a shamanic practitioner who does soul retrieval.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to agree, truly. Sonia is saying, I actually think I left my family at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Many of us do.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. We leave emotionally before we do physically.
Yeah.
Sometimes, though, mentally we're still connected to them, even though we've left, because we have triggers, and we learned it back there, and so mentally we're still connected to them.
Absolutely. And then sometimes we're still connected through energetic cords. Sometimes when we leave, we kind of leave a piece of our soul with them, to allow us to leave. So there's all kinds of interesting energetic ways to approach what we're talking about with a shamanic healer.
So let me ask you this, Debra. How does somebody go about finding a reputable shamanic practitioner if they don't live in Wisconsin?
Sure.
But if, let's say, because we're on Facebook live stream, we have people that's going to be watching this from all over the world, literally.
Sure.
So how does somebody go about finding a reputable shamanic practitioner?
Now, there's a couple of places. There's no one overall governing body for shamanic practitioners. So there's several places that you could look. One, the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. The Foundation for the Shamanic Studies, they have a registry. Mm-hmm. The Society for Shamanic Practice has a registry. And then there's another place called Shaman Portal. Mm-hmm. All of those can be found on the web. Now, there's a lot of really good shamanic practitioners, though, who aren't on those as well. So really, probably, if you want to work with someone local, my best suggestion would be to go to a local metaphysical store or like a rock and crystal store and do some questioning there, because the proprietors of those kind of places come into contact with really good practitioners, and they can refer you to someone who is really good if you want to do this work in person. Right. Now, there's also a lot of this work can be done remotely via a phone session or like a Skype session. A lot of this soul retrieval, in the spirit realms, we know about energetic healing. There is no space or time, so we can do a lot of this remotely too.
And I have to say, Debra, that for our listeners out there, both you and I have done that kind of work remotely.
Absolutely.
For students. Yeah. And so it can be just as effective. One of the things that I'd like to say about the remote distance kind of soul retrieval or healings is that you eventually do a face-to-face, whether it's through Skype or FaceTime or Hangout or something, because that way you have that closure, bringing it together.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So Jocelyn, I just saw that she asked, can you retrieve that missing part of your soul? Absolutely. That is what soul retrieval is, Jocelyn. That missing soul piece can be retrieved.
Yeah. And her first question was, would you say that you could lose part of your soul because of a loved one's death?
Absolutely. Yep. Part of us can leave with that loved one. Mm-hmm. Any kind of trauma, a loss of a loved one through divorce or death, surgery, like a sudden car accident, any kind of violence. Mm-hmm. Those are, trauma, abuse, neglect. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I have to say thank you to Anne. Anne is saying that's you, Neshi. When you were talking about not all healers or shamanic practitioners are listed in the society. I used to be, life changes.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of shamanic practitioners are pretty independent, so it would make sense that they wouldn't necessarily be part of a community. Yeah.
Well, a community that has a lot of rules.
Right.
Yeah, we tend not to do that too well. And Sue, we need to put this one up. Sue, whoops, I'm sorry. I thought I grabbed Sue's. Hang on. Sue is saying, anyone wanting a shamanic practitioner, I suggest Debra or Karen McIntosh from Crow Moon Healing.
B&B.
They're worth the trip. I'm from out of state, but they are the best.
Oh, thank you, Sue.
That is so nice. Thank you so much for saying that, because it's one thing for us to to talk about our work or Deborah's work or whatever. But when it comes from somebody who actually has been through the process,
Yes.
has personal experience, and they say something like this, Sue, that is one of the kindest things I've seen today.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you. Oh, and here's Anne. God, Anne. Anne helped me retrieve my shattered soul way back when. It was a start. I'm continuing to learn. Oh, Anne. I wish I could give you a hug right now, Anne. And get me all teary-eyed here. Ruin the makeup. Thanks for that, Anne. So we only have a couple minutes left here, about 5 minutes. I wanted to leave time for Debra to be able to share some information about some of her classes that are coming up and offerings that she has. And so, Debra, would you share with us about the empath class and also the medicine wheel?
Absolutely. The Energy Essentials for Empaths class happens several times a year, and it's a series of 3 one-day classes, modules 1, 2, and 3. And I'm an empath, and over the years, I developed many tools to help me be more comfortable with my sensitivity to energy. There's a lot of us out there. There's a lot of empaths out there, and it seems like the energies are getting heightened all the time. So it's really helpful for empaths to come together, to talk with other empaths, to learn tools. We're not just stuck with this. I think, when we're first learning, that's what we think, like, oh, we're just stuck with this and I'm miserable. But it's so helpful for people to know, number one, that they're not alone. There's other people like them. And then number two, there are tools we can learn to manage our abilities so that we're more comfortable in our energy body. So, Module 1 is happening this Saturday, January 6th. Another Module 1 is happening at the beginning of April. And then the third Module 1 is happening at the beginning of September. So, you have to start with Module 1, but at any point that you're ready, you can jump in with that. Now, the medicine wheel, that's the 2.5-year medicine wheel program. That's obviously a long commitment, 2.5 years. It's a very intense program. It's a large commitment. We come together one weekend every 3 months, and it's personal healing that brings about growth. It's a way to jumpstart your personal growth and healing. So
perfect.
And the next medicine wheel is starting in February of 2019. So if you're interested, let me know, because there's things you can do to be prepared to get ready for that.
And if you want more information, because I know this is, it's going to be recorded, so you can replay it as many times as you want to. But you can also visit Debra's website, and she has all this information right there.
So just to quickly answer Rochelle's question, Rochelle, these classes are in the Prairie du Sac area, either at my office in Prairie du Sac or at Crow Moon Healing, which is in rural Mazomanie, which is just outside of Sauk City,
right, and
Wisconsin.
Yeah, Rochelle, from Sun Prairie, Prairie du Sac would be to the west and a little bit to the northwest. It's not very far from.
Probably about 30 minutes, I'm guessing, 35 minutes. Yeah.
On the traffic, because you have to kind of go around Madison. So depending on traffic, about 30 minutes, maybe 45 from Sun Prairie. Her son lives in Sun Prairie. That's why.
Oh, yeah.
And here, Carla Jo, you're very welcome. She says, "Thank you, ladies. This has been a wonderful show. Full of information." You're very welcome. I'm so glad. That was my intention, is because I know Debra has such really good grasp and knows her stuff when it comes to the shamanic realm and healing. And I knew that you would have some really good tips for us too.
Well, thank you to all of our listeners and all of our viewers. And also a big thank you to Neshi for inviting me to come on and talk with you. Thank you, Neshi.
You're welcome. Now, you're welcome to hang out into the green room. I need to cover just a couple of things with our listeners, and then we can wrap things up between the two of us afterwards, okay?
All right. Thank you.
All right. So wasn't that fun? Oh my gosh. And, that kind of information, it's priceless. It's priceless. I wanted to cover a couple of things with the audience about the magazine, Star Nations magazine. We are working on the January 2018 issue right now. And so I also wanted to remind you that the December issue, which is, here's the cover of the December issue, that's still available. That's available in print on demand, and also as a digital if you have Apple or Android, for both phones and also tablets. Also, if you prefer, to read your material by actually holding it, print on demand, to actually hold, here's the free issue, to actually hold it. We also have print on demand, and also PDF and a web viewer. If you're one of those people who don't want any of that, and you just want to be able to sit down on any device that you have, you can do web viewer or PDF. Okay. And so the December issue is still out there. If you want to get any of the previous issues, you can still do that. You can purchase any of the issues all the way back to 2013 if you want. So they're all available that way. I also wanted to make sure that you know about The Tarot Journey by Julie Hedges. It's a really great book. If you're looking at learning how to do tarot, to read the tarot, that ancient language, it's good stuff. And this is Minnie Kansman's book, Missing Nana. It's about grief, and it's meant for children, but it's good for everybody. And it's about how nature spirits help us to move through the grief. And so I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned those things to you, and to also wish you a really happy new year, in holding the best outcome for 2018, abundance and joy, right, and peace. And so with that, you can join me next week for Star Nations Communications from Home, and right here, Star Nations Radio Network, at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. So with that, good night, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week.